Welcome. On today's episode of Modern Prospecting Podcast, we have Casey Drake. Casey is the VP of Sales of Endear and a self-described sales and customer experience nerd. His words, not mine. And full disclosure, Casey is also one of Tiga's best customers and really one of the truly innovative sales leaders that I know. So Casey, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Love if you could start by telling us about your background, about Endear.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. A really kind words saying I'm one of your best customers. Definitely, I would say one of your earliest customers. I think even before the solution was a solution,
Yes.
Yeah, we were chatting about some of the possibilities.
We were.
I'm excited to be here. I say I'm a sales and customer success nerd. I'm also very much, I think, self-taught is the way I like to put it. I had, 1 year of traditional sales experience where I really enjoyed that company and I got good sales training there. But even that company was fairly startup-y. They were 100 people when I was there. So it wasn't the most traditional sales environment in the world, even at that company. And then after that, I was there for a year after college and then found Endear, the company that I'm at now. And I was there founding AE, first sales hire, and then had just sort of done I feel like it's kind of a little bit of a classic journey you see at these startup companies where, founding AE and then kind of thrust into sales manager because we need to start hiring more AEs, and then thrust into more of a leadership role because we got to hire account managers and who's going to manage these people. So it's been quite a journey, but mostly self-taught. I will say I do try to read the literature and such that's out there, but I think I can bring a different perspective because I haven't had that traditional sales training that most folks at some point in their career have gone through, even if it was their first job that they don't even remember anymore kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's great to have you. You are actually an innovative sales leader and an innovative thinker, and I think it'll come out as we talk about a bunch of different things on this podcast. But tell us a little bit about Endear as a business. I personally thought it was very interesting when we met I think we met at this conference in New York City, and I think we may have had a 5-10 minute conversation, but I was just struck you're thinking about things differently. And I didn't know much about Endear, but maybe before we jump any further, tell us a little bit about Endear, the business that you're in.
So I'm assuming and guessing a lot of people that will listen to this will be more in the B2B world. And so I like to say they're probably familiar with the HubSpots and maybe the Salesforces of the world. We operate as HubSpot, but in the B2C environment. And really we're the tool that gets put into the hands of a sales associate at a retail store, usually apparel, fashion, something where you're actually thinking a little bit more about the purchase you're going to make, not a quick one-off purchase. But we're a tool that their associate would use to reach out to you. So if you, Andre, shopped at my, clothing store and I sold you that polo you're wearing, I might text you and be like, hey, how'd that podcast with Casey go? Did the polo look great on it? Let me know if you're interested in anything else. We're the tool that power that whole interaction.
Yeah. And do you, this is, you target small and mid-sized retailers basically, as I understand it.
Right? Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, we are the tool that a lot of the enterprise the bigger retailers, of the Nordstroms of the world, they have these tools, but they have a whole tech team that can build it all in-house, right? We kind of came along to be the tool that a brand that only has 5 stores, 10 stores, 15 stores, and maybe a tech team of 2 to 3 people, they can't manage a whole, clienteling is what we call it in retail. They can't manage that whole platform on their own.
Yeah. And that's where you guys come in and obviously add a lot of value. And I suspect that market is pretty big. There are a lot of retailers.
Yeah. And what's really fun about selling this solution is what I'm finding myself is a lot of the exact same problems that I have to solve for my sales team and our, scaling needs and outreach and how we're going to do something are the same problems I'm helping my retailers solve because it's a similar kind of platform. It's a sales team using it different products we're selling and different selling environment, but a lot of similar problems that we both are solving.
Yeah, you can identify with the buyer, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's always nice to be able to do that.
Well, one of the premises of this podcast is that, and I've heard it said many times in many different ways, like we have those of us that sell, those of us that lead sales teams, we have old prospecting playbooks that seem like they don't quite work anymore or not work the way they used to. And then just collectively, a lot of us are on this journey to discover a new prospecting playbook. And so part of the premise of this podcast is simply we want to talk with real practitioners, like not just people who are pontificating, but like real practitioners who are thinking differently, finding like real success. And so when I thought about guests for the show who could help us have a meaningful conversation about sort of new approaches to prospecting, I mean, I thought of you immediately. So you're very modest, but I really felt like you're doing you're thinking about it differently, you're actually getting success and that kind of thing. So I actually thought let's dig a little deeper into what you're doing, but without yet getting into the prospecting sort of motions, I thought we'd just start with this. I happen to know that you run a team of full cycle account executives, right? You don't use SDRs. I'm just curious, how did you, I seem to hear more and more companies, especially startups, moving in that direction. And I'm just kind of curious, and I think some of the folks listening would be really interested. How did you end up deciding? Was that how you started off that way? Did you evolve into that model? How did you figure out that was the right sales organizational model for Endear?
Yeah. Again, I think a lot of these I will lean on the self-taught nature of it and sort of where I came from. I sort of stumbled on it at first, I would say, because I just did what I knew. And I got lucky enough to my first sales role. I never really had to be an SDR. My first sales role, I was brought in and I was a full cycle AE, really just because like the size of our sales team in our little US office was like 3 of us. So we didn't have any SDRs. We were all just, we called it like hunt, eat what is it? Hunt,
kill what you
yes.
yeah. Eat what you kill. Sorry.
Eat what you kill. Yes. I knew we'd get there eventually. But yeah, that was sort of the model that my first ever job, my first ever step into having a career and being in the business world. That was how I was taught things. And so when I came into Endear, obviously I was our only salesperson at first. So I had no option. I just was the full cycle AE. I was the account manager. I was the billing. I was all of it. Right. And so as we started to hire people, I had to think about, if I wanted an SDR, but when I started to hire people, I hired out of necessity. I didn't hire out of having a hiring plan that I was following. It was, there is now too many potential leads coming in and too much for me to handle. I need someone to actually handle those and take them on, like give them a demo, take them through the whole process. I don't need someone just to like go find me more leads. So naturally I started hiring more AEs. And because we still didn't have an SDR, those AEs were full cycle. And I've sort of like built this like passion for never having an SDR. And now I'm like the no SDR champion, I think, because when you really think about, and I will admit, we tried it. Like we tried it in 2 different ways. We did the outsourced SDR where you hire a service and they, have somebody usually offshore that's doing the sort of like SDR actions for you. And that was a long time ago. And that didn't really work that well. And then we tried hiring an SDR in-house probably 2 or 3 years ago. And that didn't really work that well for us. And I think really it's because like, I think it's twofolds. I know I'm talking a lot here, but I'm getting
no. I was going to ask you. Ask you why, because I think that's the natural question, right? Like you tried it. I mean, you tried it. It didn't quite work for you. You tried outsourcing it. You tried insourcing it. Didn't quite work. I'm just curious why. Like,
why try it?
No, why do you think it didn't work? Versus what was the disadvantage that obviously some of it must be just the pure results, but like what was the disadvantage of having an SDR and maybe 2 AEs versus what I now know you have a team of 6 or 7 AEs, right? So like what's the
Here's the problem, and this is kind of why I've grown to be like just anti SDR, and I want them to be like eliminated from sales teams everywhere, is because what happens is both like in the outsourced model and in the insourced model, we take our like least trained, least experienced sales folks, oftentimes straight out of college, or it's their first ever sales job, and we give them the hardest job there is, which is convincing someone who's never seen my product, doesn't think they need my product, to potentially want and need my product. That's so difficult to do. And we give that job to these like super young reps as like their way into a sales organization. And I think it burns people out and it makes them hate sales because that's what they view sales as, when like the reality is when you're a full cycle AE, you're getting a lot of your leads are coming inbound from marketing. And I think like you just need to have that engine to then like help build the outbound motion, right? Like I will say a lot of this is dependent on your marketing engine being a good engine for you, because I don't think I'd be able to just do full cycle AEs if my marketing engine was working the way it does for us. It's not everything we need. We need to get something from our AEs and the things that they're doing, but you need a marketing engine to make this process work. But yeah, it didn't work because we put the worst people possible in that position, and it is the hardest job possible.
You know, when you put it that way, it seems so logical. Like we gave the hardest job to the least experienced folks, right? Like it's just, I think it's interesting. There's probably more to unpack there with regard to like, you know, does that full cycle model make sense if you don't have a lot of inbound? If in fact you're marketing, you're not getting a lot of inbound leads from marketing. I think that's something to maybe explore. But you know, do you see it as a trend, or do you remove from Endear, do you see kind of SDRs completely going away, or do you see this as maybe just there are some situations where you think it makes sense and it applies?
Well, yeah, because I think the reason SDRs took off so much is because for a long time it was a numbers game. If you got enough touches out the door, then the results would come in. Yeah. But there's two things happening with that numbers game. One, it's not as much of a numbers game anymore. Those numbers are getting worse and worse and worse, and people are kind of realizing that and figuring that out. And two, the advancement of AI, and we'll get into some of what we're doing at Endear with AI. It doesn't take a human to hit the numbers anymore. Like you don't need someone sitting in that role if their only job is like, I need someone to be pushing out these emails and personalizing them and doing a little bit of research on accounts. That's like the most tailor fit like job description to task an AI with. Doing research on an account and personalizing an email for them from that research. That's like AI's tailor fit for that.
Yeah, it really is. And in fact, like we mentioned earlier, we met at a conference. It was early in my journey of Tiga. I think we didn't actually have a product in market yet, but we had this concept of using generative AI to help find unique buying signals, help you personalize outreach at scale. And so maybe, share a little bit for those listening, kind of, what are some of the challenges that to kind of prospecting and building pipeline at Endear? And then I know you're a big proponent of what some people call signal-based approach to prospecting. So how did you evolve to that? Give us a little background on the challenges initially, and then sort of how you evolved to this idea of signal-based prospecting.
Yeah. So to take you, I think maybe all the way back to the beginning, the initial challenge was being able to close brands. And we sort of had to, the main signal we focused on was brands that were using Shopify, one of like our tech partners that we integrate with. And that was the main thing I did. I just chase down as many brands that were using Shopify. And the other signal that we used was they have stores, because we need brands with stores. So if they were using Shopify for their online and they had physical stores, we would go reach out to them and try to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And in your early days, if you're a super early startup, the one thing that's on your side is the market. Like the entire market's there for you to take. So you can kind of, you don't need to be as, you can get, I don't want to call it lucky, but you have more chances to get lucky and hit the right person at the right time without needing the signal that got you there. Because what I was doing in the beginning wasn't really signal based. It was more just like characteristic based. Like, oh, I know they're on Shopify. I know they're on this.
Kind of profile based maybe, or
like an ICP profile based kind of, and like really being super niche about that ICP profile. But we started two things started to happen. We started building more integrations so we could work with more tech providers. And we started sort of drying up that existing super niche market. When you go after the niche ICP, you need to then start expanding that ICP at some point. So we started expanding it. And I think what led to the signal based was the failures with the SDRs really is like, I originally thought it was a numbers problem. And I was like, well, the reason I don't have the numbers I want to see is because I have full cycle AEs and I'm asking them to do their own outbound. And they're just going to have a capacity to that if they also are full cycle AEs. So let's hire an SDR and let's get the numbers up. We did that. We got the numbers up. We didn't see a big impact or difference from just getting numbers up.
You mean activity numbers? Like
outbound emails up, calls made, emails that are sent up, LinkedIn messages up, like all of those kind of inbound numbers. Like you want to see the outbound, you got to put the inbound in. Yeah. The SDRs were able to do that piece, right? Their only job was to do that. So they got those numbers up, but we didn't see the results of like actual demos booked and deal sales coming from that. And so I just was left to think about that a little bit harder, I would say. And what I realized is I like to tell this story. I think I might have told you this exact story before. So you're hearing it on broken record, but all the listeners, this is their first time. Unless you heard me on another podcast, I might have said it on another podcast. I'm going to give the company a shout out because this is really a compliment to their sales reps. There is a company, I won't give them a shout out because I'm on your podcast actually. So I'll let you decide if you want to do that. But you know the company I'm talking about. You can decide whether to say it when I'm done telling the story. There's a company, really, really popular sales platform in the industry. And they, I would argue, have some of the best sales processes out there, I think. Like their sales reps, the messages they send me, the emails they send me. They sent me a box of cookies one time. They read my LinkedIn post and like really take it in and then analyze it and give a good, thoughtful, reply to that post. So this company, who I won't name right now, but I'll let you decide if you want to say who it is, because I think
I'm fine with it. It's Gong, right? Did I remember that? Yeah, Gong. Okay.
Yeah. So Gong, I talked to them once in the past. They're just like way too expensive for what we need for the call recording kind of software. And their reps have constantly been going after me since then, and they're the best. They send great emails, really good context, like really great value propositions and referencing LinkedIn posts I've made, all sorts of things. Sent me a box of cookies even. And I even take calls with them sometimes just because I feel like I want to, like, as a sales manager, give them the credit they deserve on their, numbers. And I'll tell them like, hey, the problem is for them, I'm not in the market for Gong right now. I don't know how long it will be until I'm in the market for Gong, but my sales team's just too small. My sales process isn't advanced enough to need all these tools that they're trying to sell me and push me on, all of the extras you pay more for when you get Gong. And so they could send me the best messages in the world until they're blue in the face. I'm never going to convert, and so I sort of had this epiphany that the numbers is not what I'm missing. It's like the moment in time. If you need to not just reach somebody with the right message, but you need to reach them at that right exact moment in time that they happen to maybe be interested in a software like yours. And so that's where I really started pushing heavy on this signal-based approach. And the other thing I like about it is it works really well with full cycle AEs, because it's not about quantity. It's more about quality and hitting that right specific moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, you did tell me that story and I thought it was very notable. Yeah, it is. I think something you said when we were chatting, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth. It's kind of like you were saying, hey, there's the, sort of like successful prospecting is about the ICP, the messaging, and the timing. And you were saying like a lot of companies have the first two, but it's the last piece that's like really elusive, really difficult to figure out, and that kind of thing.
The first two are arguably easy. And then you're just left to pull your hair out wondering why it isn't working. You're like, I know this group of people and like this solution, like the two work together. Why don't the people that I'm reaching out to about it get back to me?
All right. So that leads us to ask, how do you solve that for Endear?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's definitely still a work in progress. The very first thing we started looking at was, and we were doing this all like super manually, but we knew that when brands were opening stores, when they were expanding their store fleet, that was a great moment for us to reach out to them. And we just knew that because of it. Honestly, we took what we saw from inbound. So like a lot of our inbound traffic would be like, we have 2 stores right now, but we're opening 5 this year. So we need a tool. We have 3 stores right now, but we're opening 10 this year. So we need a tool. We're like, okay, well, clearly if people have plans to open new stores and they're opening new stores, they're coming to Endear. We should probably go to them when that's happening. And so for the longest time, there was really no tool that could help me figure that out. And then, I mean, to spoil the surprise, Tiga has helped us solve this problem. But for the longest time, it would just be literally like my reps would just go onto Google News or Google and they would just say, enter brand name. And then they would go opening new store opening, store opening, and just Google brand name, new store opening. And as soon as all the AI stuff started happening, I was like, this feels like an obvious thing I can have an AI Google for me. And just constantly Google all the time.
Which is what we do for you guys. And I bet you, when you did it manually, your salespeople, that couldn't have been the favorite part of their week to do that.
Yeah, no, probably not their most favorite. Although basically I just knew that because like this new store opening sequence that I knew worked really well, it just would have the least amount of people enrolled in it. And so I was like, well, that's obvious because that's the most work to go find out if somebody, but now, it's literally all automated now.
Yeah, with Tiga, we do help you find, it's like instead of your team doing the Google searches, evaluating the results, seeing if there's a new store opening, basically we handle that for you, and then we notify your the AE, right? So
well, it's not even that. It's more than that. It's now, I mean, and you and I haven't chatted on this in a while, but we got a great account manager there. Shout out to Micah. He does a great job with us. They like now we have that signal get passed into our HubSpot, and that signal actually pulls out for us the city that the store is located in. And then we generate a sequence to automatically go out from the salesperson that owns the account to those contacts. So the salesperson doesn't even actually touch this unless the contact starts engaging with
and that's really what you want, right? You want the rote stuff, the automatic, find the signal, craft a personalized message, send it out. And if they respond, right, then you want a human to take over and have a meaningful conversation and that kind of thing. Yeah, we've heard from a lot of customers that model seems to work really well and makes a lot of sense. I think, go ahead.
I was just going to say the biggest barrier now I'm coming up against with this model is it's a scale. It's sort of like a catch-22 where the more specific you can make your signal, the better your messaging can be, and the better your messaging converts, because like the really specific signal lets you write a really specific problem solution email, but the catch-22 is a really specific signal doesn't fire as often.
That is true.
So now I'm in this situation where I need to come up with more signals to fire more often. So that's sort of where we're at right now. I would say is we know new store opening works. We actually played with the I think a classic one people role is like, or people run and have been running forever that doesn't require AI is like new job promotion or what have you. What does require AI that we do that I think is really a little more creative is not new job promotion, but when somebody gets hired at one of our target companies for the roles that we're looking for.
Yep.
So what's tough is if we were just running that signal on a contact, we would never be able to know it because it's impossible for us to have that contact in our list already if they don't yet work and exist at that company. But because we can run it on the company and say, see if this company posts about meet our new VP of retail, meet our new director, then like we can actually run that signal really well.
Yeah, and in fact, there are other companies, other customers of ours that run a similar kind of signal. Usually, it's not a. Usually, it's a maybe a more senior position. I'm not sure exactly what the particular role is, but there's quite often, and actually, it's a signal we run for ourselves. Even at Tiga, it's like when there's a new revenue leader joining one of our target accounts, fires a message, and really the first message out, which is automated, is not even it's not asking for a meeting. It's just like congratulations, and it's just, as I like to call, good vibes, and just creating that relational connection. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people will be sitting there thinking, man, Casey, that's great that you found the really like the signal that works, and you're on the hunt to find more. But they're probably thinking about their own business. What is this unique signal? Not these common signals. There are a lot of good common signals like, hey, company gets financing. Those are, I would call them common or mainstream signals. But the thing about yours is you found a signal that mattered to your business, right? And so I think there are people, and Tiga, that's the thing that we can do. We can find signals that are very particular, unique to your business. So I think I think a lot of folks might be wondering, how did you? I know you said you looked at the inbound notices, but in general, any tips on how you would go about discovering unique signals that matter to your business? You obviously disclose one, which is look at what's happening in inbound. But any other thoughts on that? Like, I know you said it's really hard.
Even if you don't have that inbound funnel necessarily, I would say it's similar to how you would go about defining your ICP, but you go like a whole layer deeper. So like when I talk to my sales team about this now to try to think of these new signals, what I am saying is like, I don't want you guys to try to tell me right now, this is the brainstorming session we have. Like, don't tell me reasons why someone might be a good fit for Endear. I want you to tell me, like, when you get on that first call with somebody, that first like discovery call, tell me what about them makes you in your head go like, oh, this is a slam dunk. Like, what are those things that you hear where you're like, oh my God, this is going to be like an absolute slam dunk for me. That is where like your ICP needs to be a little bit bigger than that. And I think like the whole reason you have a sales team is to be able to close people that aren't slam dunks. So not every deal should be a slam dunk, but when you want to look for your signals, look for like, what's a slam dunk on the pipeline to my sales team, because that's like an almost subconscious indicator of like a signal we haven't even thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to put it in my context, right? Like for us, when we find someone or a space where they have signals, first of all, they get the idea of signals, like they understand it, and then they have an idea of signals that they are doing or that they're looking for
doing manually.
Oh, that's a slam dunk for us, like, because we can find almost any unique signal that you might have if it's discoverable, I always like to say. Okay, we're gonna wrap up soon. I wanted to get your thoughts on AI tools like Tiga. They're becoming more and more automated. They're becoming more fully automated agents. How do you think they, broadly speaking, not just Endear, but like now as just a sales leader in the space, how do you think these tools will change the way sales is done, the interaction between buyer and seller? What's your thing? What is the impact of sales tools like Tiga on sort of market?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the better and better these tools get at the monotonous tasks, the more important it's going to be for a sale. And I've thought this for a while. I think like the future of your best salesperson is going to be a combination of, I should say, I think there's two different versions of best salespeople that are going to come around. I think there's going to be one kind of person who is like I read about this in a blog. I'm trying to remember what like the guy referred to them as, like an Iron Man. I think he called it like an Iron Man salesperson, where they know how to use your AI tool. They know how to like actually use these tools and make them better for themselves, almost like how to like run a signal on their own that nobody else is using yet, and things like that. And I think the other side of it is like, I think salespeople need to almost become like content generation engines, right? Because I think that's where I think AI is going to fall. AI is not going to be able to catch up to like, I can create a video showing you how to do this certain thing in my app. I can like create a video talking you through how to like build a customer journey. Or if I'm a salesperson at Tiga, I can make a video like taking you through the exact thought process of like how to think about your signals and build your signals. That is not something that an AI can do.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, like, and then like I'm posting that on LinkedIn and I'm commenting on people's link. Like I'm a personality. I think the best salespeople will be personalities, like almost influencers for their company, if you will, better than just selling the solution as well.
Yeah. So AI, or as we like to call it, the model, you're definitely one of the individuals that are moving, and a big believer in this model we call AE plus AI, right? Like kind of the full cycle AE with an AI. And you're saying really tools like Tiga, other tools are going to just give the AE more leverage to be more human, spend time focusing on their unique point of view while the monotonous stuff is getting taken care of for them on their behalf, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, there's kind of like it's like kind of a funny problem I'm finding myself facing. I'm not afraid to say this on here because I've said this to my sales team, but like I'm with you guys, with my team that I'm working with at Tiga, I'm slowly but surely automating away the tasks that I'm asking people to do.
Yeah.
So what I'm left to ask myself is then like, well, what should they do?
Right.
And it's an interesting question to have to ask yourself. Like, you know, ideally you have enough demos and leads and whatnot coming in from all this outreach and things that you're doing. Their calendars are just filled with talking to customers, real one-to-one conversations. But if they're not doing that, there's a bunch of other stuff I've thought that like is on the table. Like we're talking about, you know, taking on more of an ABM approach with like, if we know we have this top 25 accounts list, okay, cool. We've got Tiga set up and doing all of the easy monotonous stuff on our list of 4,000 accounts. But we have this top 25 accounts that we want to go even deeper on. And we want to send them something in the mail that like is cheeky and fun and like gets them to go like, oh, that was funny. What's this Endear thing? And we want to, you know, get in front of their CEO somehow, and all of these different things that like are really, you know, specific. So it's different things that I'm thinking about, like just basically like better ways to spend my sales team's time, because they don't need to be spent on the monotonous stuff.
That makes me so happy, because that's actually one of the reasons we built Tiga, is to, you know, I think of it, you know, a lot of people think when they describe like they want their software development team or their engineers to be smart. I think we're moving to a world where salespeople have to be really smart, because all the kind of monotonous, you know, stuff is easily handled by AI, right? So you're talking about things that, you know, you got to be truly creative. You want to think strategically about the account, and you know, spend time with relational human to human connection, that kind of thing. So
what will be
go ahead.
Sorry, what will be interesting to see is like what what is a salesperson who's at a company who might not be embracing AI? What do they do? Right. Because I think there's almost like an advantage there where if they can figure out how to use AI kind of on their own, they'd have to be cheap about it because they don't have the budgets of a company behind them. But like they might be able to get like 3 legs ahead of everybody on their sales team.
Yeah. I mean, to me, if, look, I'm not an AE, but like to me, if I'm a salesperson in a company not using it, I'll do everything I can to familiarize myself with these tools because it's the future, right? And just because you work in a company that doesn't use, AI right now or isn't fully implemented the way Endear is, I think is no excuse. It's self-preservation. This is where things are going, and smart AEs will jump on board, right? Last question, truly last question. I think, as I said, we want this podcast to be about people who are actually practitioners doing real things, getting real results. What I've seen a lot is in the last, especially in the last, I would say 3 or 4 months, is that there are a lot of sales leaders that are moving from what I might call in the last couple of years AI curious to AI serious, right? Like now they're getting pressure from the board, from the CEO, like, it comes up every board meeting. They don't have so they feel the pressure to get started. They don't know where to get started. You jumped right in, obviously, with Tiga, and because it seemed like we fit hand in glove. But what are some tips, like just even 1 or 2 tips on how do I get started using AI for sales? There's this huge sort of landscape of vendors, and you're getting pressure from the board. How do we get started?
I think have a point solution, right? I think if you just like start using I think this is actually happening to a lot of companies right now, which is not great, but you might have, you probably read a lot of news about this stuff. So you might have actually seen this survey that I think got done, but there's a survey done recently that I read that it's like it's something like 80% of leaders, say they're using AI, but 70% or 60% of those same people say they haven't really seen a difference or an outcome or an impact from it. And I think it's because there's this rush, like you're saying, there's this rush and push to implement AI. And so people are just, I got to implement AI. I got to buy an AI solution. And also I think some of these leaders know like, well, if it doesn't work, I was trying something new. I can always rest my laurels on I was trying something new.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't do anything if you don't think it's going to work. So really like what was the only reason we started using Tiga and the reason it's been successful for us is because we had multiple like really specific point solutions in mind. Like the new store open, I want to be able to Google this on all these companies. And when it happens, I want my sales team to do something. I want to be able to Google this on all of these companies. When it happens, and like that, we knew exactly what we wanted that to be. So like have a point solution in mind, find a tool that solves that exact thing. And then it's very likely what I've seen from not just Tiga, but all these tools that I get pitched, that same tool does 1,000 other things. And you can just keep exploring what that tool can do for you after you've figured out that 1 point solution.
Start with that, the one succinct problem you want to solve, and then you're going to find, hey, there are other things it can do, and you can expand from there. But yeah, I sometimes say, like get the footprint of success, right? Just like the singular footprint of success, and then you can expand from there. It's really great advice. Now, at the risk of like jamming your mailbox and your LinkedIn connections, would you, if there are folks that are wanting to get advice, would you welcome them reaching out to you? Yeah, because I really do.
And put like Modern Prospecting Podcast in your LinkedIn connection request, so that way I know where you guys came from, because I don't just accept anybody. But definitely connect with me.
I think there's so much wisdom you can share, and I think lots of folks will be really interested in your practical experience of actually implementing AI in sales. So you're definitely a pioneer.
It's a brand new thing for all of us. So like the more brains we can get involved in working on this problem, the better we're all going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Casey. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Loved it. And thanks for being a customer. We love having you as a customer, and as I said, you are innovative, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks for dealing with all my feedback all the time.
We love it. We love it.
That. Awesome. Thanks so much, Andre.
Thanks.